Hey, welcome in. This is Chiefs Chase. My name is Mike Bassano. Thank you so much for joining me as the Kansas City Chiefs are 13-1.
Mahomes has the time. Jab step. Wide open for the touchdown, Noah Gray.
The Kansas City Chiefs walk into Cleveland and beat the Browns 21-7. Multiple score victory on the road. It wasn't the prettiest thing in the world, and we're going to dive into that. But let's not forget the absolute fact that the Kansas City Chiefs went on the road today in porous, raining, bad weather conditions, and they beat the Cleveland Browns by multiple scores. We're going to start with that because that is undeniably a positive. I know there are going to be a lot of people that bring up a lot of negativity from this game, and I understand it. It was hard to watch. It was like watching Requiem for a Dream on repeat. But at the same time, the Chiefs went on the road against the Cleveland Browns, and they won by multiple scores. They're 13-1. They're the number one seed in the AFC. And keep in mind, this is the first of a 3 games in 10-day stretch for the Kansas City Chiefs. They have the Texans and the Steelers coming up. So if you're going to overlook a game and come out with a vanilla preseason game plan, the Browns would be the one to do it against. And it seems as if the Kansas City Chiefs did exactly that. They came out with a vanilla game plan. They came out looking like it was preseason. It was a little clunky here and there. Guys didn't necessarily seem to be on the same page. And I think the best explanation for that is they're looking past the Browns. Normally in the NFL, you can never look past a team, right? You always have to be focused on that game, that week, because it's the only one that matters. But the Chiefs are in a very unique situation now. 3 games in 10 days against very tough AFC opponents other than the Browns, right? You have the Texans, the number one team in the AFC South. Then you have the Steelers, the number one team in the AFC North. You have to focus on both of these games because not only are these really hard games, they're games against teams that you will potentially see in the playoffs again. So not only do you have to game plan for really hard games, you have to make a specific game plan for the Steelers and the Texans to hide a little bit for the playoffs in case you see them again. And then stick it in your craw while you're trying to get ready for these 2 tough games out of your 3 in 10 days. You have the Cleveland Browns, who you know you can beat, even if it's done sloppily and even if it's done with a preseason level game plan. And in my opinion, that's exactly what happened for the Kansas City Chiefs today. The Chiefs came in with a game plan that was very vanilla, a game plan you would expect to see in the middle of August, and it looked hard to watch. It was hard to watch. It was like Requiem for a Dream. It was hard to watch. So they came in with this game plan, and the downside of it is it looked like Patrick Mahomes was getting beaten around like a pinball.
4th down, Mahomes getting rid of it, but got caught underneath Tomlinson.
And that wasn't necessarily because of the offensive line this time. You know, we've taken a lot of shots at the offensive line in Kansas City this year because we don't like watching our $500 million quarterback get beaten around. But today it wasn't really about the offensive line. Nobody was getting separation in their routes. Nobody was getting open. And that leads me to believe that this was a very vanilla game plan where there wasn't a lot of work to get separation from the coaching staff. And I think there's going to be a lot of frustration thrown at Matt Nagy, a lot of frustration thrown at Andy Reid. Hey, Andy Reid, end of the first half, blunder that can't happen. That's the Andy Reid. Look, this is why Patrick Mahomes gets the statue. This is why Patrick Mahomes gets all the accolades that he does throughout the NFL. This is why all of you that hate Chris Collinsworth, hate the NFL, hate everybody that says nice things about Patrick Mahomes, this is why you need to pay attention. Because what Andy Reid did at the end of the first half is a perfect example of why he never won a Super Bowl before Patrick. Because with the game on the line and the big moments when it comes to time management and game management, Andy Reid falls apart. And we see it all the time, but it gets made up for in the playoffs because Patrick Mahomes puts on the Superman cape. I can go back to even the first playoff run with Patrick Mahomes when they won the Super Bowl. Not the one where they lost to the Patriots in the AFC Championship, but the first Super Bowl playoff run. Go back to the AFC Championship game. Chiefs played a very good Titans team that had upset the Patriots with Tom Brady, and they had upset the Baltimore Ravens. And then in the AFC Championship game, they came to Arrowhead. At the end of the first half, Andy Reid completely screwed up everything at the end of the first half of that game. Terrible timeout calls, horrible clock management, horrible game management. And do you remember what happened?
2nd and 10 as that Tennessee defense drops back. As Long who tried to make a diving tip, and Mahomes who tiptoes inside the 10, still not out. Oh, what a run! Out of this world! Touchdown, Kansas City!
Patrick Mahomes puts on the Superman cape and has the out-of-this-world run that scores a touchdown to end the half against the Tennessee Titans. This is why Patrick Mahomes gets the credit that he gets, because we see how Andy Reid operates and why he can't win without an elite-level quarterback. Not at the high level, but that's why Patrick Mahomes gets all the glazing, quote-unquote, that all of you people can complain about. That you hate Chris Collinsworth. Well, go back to 2018. Watch Patrick Mahomes' first touchdown against the San Francisco 49ers. His first touchdown in Arrowhead. And what was it? It was a magician play. Plays like that didn't happen in 2018. Now, other quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson, like Josh Allen, and a number of others, they've developed to become more like Patrick Mahomes. But before Mahomes, no plays like that were happening, and that's why the NFL respects him so much. A lot of these casual fans that don't have any sense of history or only understand things because they bet on DraftKings. We have a whole DraftKings fan base now. That's what this is. The NFL has lost the ability to have intelligent fans, and DraftKings killed it because everyone's just worried about their bets. They're worried about hitting their overs. They're worried about, is he getting enough touchdowns to cover my parlay? And they aren't actually watching the games with any level of intelligence or understanding of what the team is trying to do. The team is trying to win a Super Bowl. The team's trying to win multiple games. They don't care about your parlay. They don't care about your over-under on yards for Travis Kelce. They care about winning. And that's why the Chiefs came out with a vanilla game plan that you could have seen from preseason, and they went into Cleveland and they won by multiple scores because they knew they could. And when you have 3 games in 10 days, the idea of game planning for all 3 of those really hard, it's just not realistic. So you look at what games can you win with a vanilla game plan out of these 3. The Browns. You have to game plan hard for the Texans. You have to game plan hard for the Steelers. But you can get a low-level game plan in there, a vanilla preseason game plan against the Browns, and you can win. And that's what the Chiefs did today. They came in with a vanilla game plan, and they got the dub. They move to 13-1, remaining the number 1 seed. They win 21-7, a multiple-score win. I know it doesn't feel good. I know this win doesn't feel good for Chiefs fans because there was a lot of problems going on with this team, and you hate to see Patrick Mahomes get hurt. And he got hurt because of the lack of separation. It really wasn't the offensive line this time. They did okay. Yeah, Myles Garrett's really good. There's a pretty solid pass rush in Cleveland. But the Chiefs still did a pretty good job, honestly, of getting that whole pass rush together. Yeah, they did a pretty good job of protecting Patrick, but there was nobody getting open. They had to do short passes. They had to try to run the ball, but they couldn't run the ball well today either. Joe Thuney moving from left guard to left tackle really helped the pass protection, but it really destroyed the running game because without that push from the middle 3 and the offensive line that the Chiefs have been very reliant on in the run game, right? Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, Joe Thuney. You move Thuney outside, suddenly you don't get that push in the middle like you're used to having. So we saw a drop off by the running backs, especially Isaiah Pacheco. And it wasn't because the backs weren't hitting the hole. It wasn't because Pacheco lost a step. It's because the offensive line, when you have to move Thuney to the outside as a run-blocking unit, they take a step back. DJ Humphries has got to get healthy. It's really the biggest issue for the Chiefs right now is that they didn't do a good enough job at solidifying the offensive line before the season. They thought a second-round rookie from BYU was going to be their guy. Kingsley at left tackle. Remember him? I don't even know if he's on the team anymore because you can't put him out there because he's too much of a liability. Wanya Morris fell off for a 4-game stretch to a point where it felt like Patrick Mahomes was going to get destroyed. So you move Thuney to the outside, but then no one can get separation and you can't get a running game going to soften the defense because Thuney's on the outside. So really, all of these issues, all of these problems, some of them come back to game planning, some of them come back to game management, but most of them will come back to the offensive line and the Chiefs' inability to field a 5-man group that can actually get things done. And that's a concern. That's the major concern going into the playoffs and why DJ Humphries is such an important need for this football team. He has to get back out there, and they have to put him in positions where he doesn't get hurt. And frustrating thing is he comes back off an ACL, hasn't played for almost a year, and then boom, he gets his injury on his hamstring. There's not a right way to do this, but it looks like there's a lot of wrong ways to do it, and it tends to be happening. Let's dive deeper into this. Let's try to get on to some more. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but it's because there's a lot of mixed emotions with this team. There's a lot of mixed emotions with this game. The Chiefs won by multiple scores on the road. That's awesome. But if you watch the game, you're going, didn't like it. Didn't like it. But still 13-1, still a multiple score on the road. It's a hard game to dissect because there's so many mixed emotions going on within this game. But at the end of the day, I think the most likely scenario is the Chiefs overlooked the Browns. They thought, hey, we have to get ready for the Texans and the Steelers, who are coming up in the next 9 days. Both of them, which is a ridiculous scheduling situation from the NFL that they should be embarrassed about doing to their players while they lie saying they care about player safety. You see all these guys around the NFL dropping like flies? You say you care about player safety, but what I'm watching is a bunch of injuries and irresponsible scheduling from the NFL. That's what I'm seeing. I'm hearing a lot of we care about player safety, but what I'm seeing is a lot of irresponsible scheduling and injuries galore across the league. So you tell me what's going on. I'm not a doctor. I didn't make a movie called Concussion. You tell me what's going on. Why is it that everybody's getting injured and the NFL's putting up these ridiculously irresponsible schedules for player safety? Why is that happening? Convince me you give a shit, Roger. Convince me, because I don't think you do.
Line of scrimmage is now the 21. Spin it over to Worthy. Down the sideline. Cuts it inside for the touchdown. Looking for explosive plays. The Chiefs get one.
On to the rest of the game. Let's start with Eric Bieniemy. I just want to start with Bieniemy because last year, Eric Bieniemy came in and he solidified this offense. Eric Bieniemy was the offensive coordinator for the Washington Commanders last year, and he got fired along with the rest of the staff. Then he came back to Kansas City for the playoffs, and suddenly the Chiefs' offense looks significantly more crisp, like it used to when Eric Bieniemy was running it. Well, now Eric Bieniemy's been fired as offensive coordinator at UCLA, and he has to come back to Kansas City. I don't care about what Eric Bieniemy does everywhere else. He is Andy Reid's Josh McDaniels. For the New England Patriots, when Bill Belichick had Josh McDaniels, his teams were significantly better. And then McDaniels would go other places and he would fail. Sometimes you're just really good with a certain person. You make each other better. And I think it's pretty undeniable at this point that Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy make each other better. So bring back Eric Bieniemy into the fold. Let him take part of this offense so you can see some crispness because everybody looks like they're not on the same page. Everybody. And you can come back and blame whoever you want to for that, but the fact is, it's everybody. Everybody's got to get better, right? Andy Reid, Matt Nagy, the whole offense collectively, everyone has to be better. And Eric Bieniemy, no matter what players might say about him, no matter how harsh he is on players, Eric Bieniemy gets results. And as long as the Chiefs continue to look sloppy on offense, we have to entertain the idea of going to get the guy who's sitting at home right now that we know for a fact can get results. And after a game like this, I don't see any argument against bringing Eric Bieniemy in. Where's the argument against it? Because after a game like this, seeing so much sloppiness across the board on offense, seeing a game where the Chiefs should have scored 35 points at least, and they scored 21, I think that comes up, and you go, what's the argument against Eric? Why not bring in Eric Bieniemy? He's a multiple Super Bowl winner in Kansas City and consistently makes this offense better when he's in town. So why not bring in Eric? I don't see the downside. I do see the downside of staying course. That is one thing I see a very big downside about, and frankly, I think most of the rest of the team sees it too. You can't be blind to that. The Chiefs are a 13-1 football team. They're doing very well. However, I think this season has been a much better argument for building a statue to Steve Spagnuolo than it's been an argument for an overall great football team, right? Because the defense was fantastic. Let's go ahead and get to this. And one more thing before we move on. The Chiefs scored 14 points off of 5 takeaways. That's not good. You get 5 turnovers, you score a grand total of 14 points off of 5 turnovers? Not good. Has to improve. And another great argument for why Eric Bieniemy should be brought in just as a consultant even. Have him in the building because we can see it. It doesn't take a super trained eye. When Eric Bieniemy is with the Kansas City Chiefs, the offense is crisper. It runs at a higher level. It looks like guys are afraid and are being held accountable, so they're working harder to be disciplined because that offense today lacked a lot of discipline. All right. The Chiefs are tired. We'll get to that here in just a few minutes. The Chiefs look tired. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But first, the defense played lights out, other than one play that was a touchdown for the Browns that looked very sad. But other than that one play, the defense played lights out. We're going to give them their flowers right now. Steve Spagnuolo, give him his statue, man. Steve Spagnuolo is one of the best defensive coordinators of all time, clearly the best defensive coordinator in Kansas City of all time, and you love to see it. Spags' defense was all over the Cleveland Browns. Jameis Winston threw pick after pick after pick because he had to, because he couldn't tell what was going on because he was too confused by Steve Spagnuolo.
25 to go. Thompson Robinson intercepted, and that's going to end it. It's Jaden Hicks stumbling down the sideline, forced out of.
Steve is so good at getting opposing quarterbacks to melt down and throw interceptions that he had Jameis Winston having to sit on the bench. And if anything, just to save Jameis from himself. He was so confused and throwing interception after interception, and that's because you have a guy like Steve Spagnuolo, a defensive coordinator, who is able to confuse quarterbacks. And he's been phenomenal the entire season. In games like today where the offense comes out and looks like they have an uninspired game plan and they aren't on the same page at any level, the Chiefs still are getting victories because they have Steve Spagnuolo coming out and shutting the opposing offense down. That's what we love to see from Steve Spagnuolo. He is an absolute monster of a defensive coordinator, and the Chiefs show how much they love Steve Spagnuolo every single week because these guys put it on, man. They let Steve Spagnuolo come in and make those calls, and those players commit every single play to every single call. And we're going to run through those players here in just a second. But before I move on from Steve, look, Spags is the best defensive coordinator in the NFL, and he proves it every single week. He can go in against a Cleveland Browns team or against a Baltimore Ravens team, Cincinnati Bengals, name it. Spags goes out there and plays and puts together a phenomenal game plan. The only play this whole season that's really been a mark against Spags is the 4th and 2 play in Buffalo where Josh Allen got the first down and then the touchdown. That's the only mark against him because Josh Allen wasn't spied on that play. 4th and 2, and you didn't account for Josh Allen's running ability. That can't happen. But other than that, Spags has been lights out, and I think probably the biggest reason for the Chiefs going 13-1. And I know this is a team that wants to be built by defense. They want to slow the games down. They want to win time of possession. But when you get 5 takeaways handed to you by Steve Spagnuolo, you got to come away with more than 14 points. That's the concern about the offense. But it should be a very exciting time looking at the defense and what they're able to accomplish. Confusing quarterbacks, creating turnovers. Something that's been a little bit difficult for the Chiefs this year is creating turnovers. So a big upside today from Cleveland is that the Chiefs created 5 turnovers. 5 takeaways against the Cleveland Browns. What a phenomenal game by everybody on the defensive side of the ball, holding the Browns to 7 points at home in a game that you know the Browns got up for. We'll dive a little deeper into the Browns getting up for this game here in a bit because Myles Garrett had some things to say, and we will dive into that. First, though, Trent McDuffie, the best cover corner in Chiefs history.
Motion man, Whitehart, the tight end. Winston steps up. Winston downfield. End zone. On his knees. Intercepted by McDuffie.
Trent McDuffie, when he's man-to-man against somebody, it's almost unfair. I mean, he gets those plays, like he had a couple today, where he's playing man-to-man. Jameis threw a perfect ball, and it didn't matter because McDuffie got a hand in there. He also got a pick on a ball that was less than perfect. But on the perfect passes, this is where Trent McDuffie separates himself. I don't care about the interceptions so much. Very happy that Trent McDuffie got his interception today. Want to make that clear. But beyond the interceptions for Trent McDuffie, something people don't talk about enough, his ability to cover man-to-man and take away perfect throws is so demoralizing for other teams. Because you're a quarterback, you have written up this entire play from your offensive coordinator, you've read everything, you know where to throw it, you get your one-on-one with your best wide receiver, and you throw a perfect strike, only to have Trent McDuffie get a hand in there and knock it down. That is so discouraging for an opposing quarterback, and it pushes them to try to take chances. And that's where Jameis Winston threw all of his interceptions. So Trent McDuffie McDuffie being the best cover corner in Chiefs history, and I think the best cover corner in the NFL right now, he is an unbelievably important part of this defense, and I have not seen anyone cover man-to-man as well as Trent McDuffie. He is unreal. One of the best I've ever seen. I got to tell you, without him on this defense, I'm very concerned. But with him on this defense, I'm feeling good, baby. Having a shutdown corner is so important when it comes to the playoffs because think about the teams you're going to go up against. They all have big-time wide receivers, and you're going to need a guy to step up and take away that wide receiver. Trent McDuffie can do that. It doesn't matter if it's a great wide receiver. It doesn't matter if it's a perfect throw. Trent McDuffie's that guy. And he's always been that guy. And he just keeps showing up every single week. And he keeps proving it every single week that Trent McDuffie is the best corner in the NFL. And I tell you right now, the Chiefs should build him a statue right outside of Arrowhead when he's done. Because I cannot get enough of what Trent McDuffie's been accomplishing. Put his statue right next to Spags. And then on the other side of that, you can put a Nick Bolton statue because he keeps playing out of his mind, including today with a half a sack that he shared with Drew Tranquill and an interception. Every week, we see Nick Bolton play lights out for this defense. Every week, we wonder, man, how do you get a middle linebacker to play that good? I know that there were some struggles early on for Nick this season, but those are long gone because what we've seen from Nick Bolton since then, he has been an absolute monster. So Nick Bolton's been everywhere. I love watching that guy play football, and I could watch him play football all day long. Let's go, Nick Bolton. See, I'm getting fired up. That's the thing. It took me time in this show to get fired up because it was such a weird game to watch. It was so hard to watch. It was ugly. Everybody was not on the same page offensively, but defensively, we got to get fired up about this Chiefs team because these guys are they are lunch pail guys coming to work every single week and putting it on every single other team. 5 takeaways for the defense today. In the backfield the entire time, disrupting the plays. Chris Jones is in everybody's face. George Karlaftis got 2 sacks. Treshaun Wharton, again. Tershawn Wharton, again, coming in with another sack. So this defensive line is elevating their play at the best possible time, and the linebackers are playing out of their mind. Not only did Tranquill and Bolton get on it, but what about Leo Chenal? Leo Chenal looking like a beast today. Every time I see Leo Chenal make a play, it feels like he punishes the opposing team because he's that strong. He hits that hard. He had a great punch-out fumble for us today, and he is, I think, the future of linebackers in Kansas City. What Leo Chenal could be for this team is so massive. And will he move to middle linebacker after this season? I think that's a very fair question. Will Leo Chenal move to linebacker after this season? I don't know the answer to that question, but I think there's a pretty good chance he will. Nick Bolton's going to cost a lot of money. I mean, he might be L'Jarius Sneed right out of here, unfortunately. Right? That's just the reality of having a championship football team. You have a lot of players who are really good and they leave because they can make a ton more money elsewhere because there are other teams dying to have a great Super Bowl champion on their team. Well, the Chiefs have a roster full of Super Bowl champions. It's hard to pay all of them. That's kind of the way this works, and it's why it's so hard to stay good in the NFL, why it's so impressive that the Chiefs have had a run like this, 9 straight AFC West championships, not one losing season under Andy Reid. There's a reason why this team is so good, and it's hard to keep all your players when you're that good. It just is. But Nick Bolton today, Leo Chenal today, Drew Tranquill, everybody played phenomenal football on this team, including in the secondary, right? A lot of the time this year we have worried, immensely worried about what the secondary is bringing to the table, but not today. Today, we are on point. This Chiefs secondary played phenomenal football today, and I love to see it. All right, more stuff. I'm sorry I got into it because I just get excited about the defense. I want to be excited about the Chiefs all the time. The difference between most games for the Chiefs and this game today, well, it's quite simple. It was hard to watch. I mean, there are other games where the Chiefs haven't played well. Today, it felt like the Chiefs just couldn't get their stuff together. And I think it's because they overlooked the Browns. They overlooked this game. They thought and they were right to be fair. They won by multiple scores on the road. They didn't really have to pull out all the stops to beat the Cleveland Browns. But the lack of crispness on the offense is a concern. Does that come from the lack of game planning because they're overlooking this game? I think that's a fair question. But at the same time, the lack of crispness worries me. And I know that Eric Bieniemy equals crispness for this offense. And if you want to stop getting Patrick Mahomes destroyed in the pocket, you're going to need a more crisp offense. So maybe bring in Eric Bieniemy. I love that idea of Bieniemy. I just do. All right, now the Chiefs are still everybody's Super Bowl. Now, why do I say that? Myles Garrett, before the game, told the broadcast that, hey, let me make sure I get it right. Yeah, Myles Garrett, of all guys, Myles Garrett said, hey, I told everybody, when you play against the Chiefs, you get a chance to make a name for yourself. Essentially proving what we've already known. Every single team looks at Kansas City as their Super Bowl, which is a very important caveat for this entire season. And why you can't judge the Chiefs the same way you would judge any other team that's not coming off back-to-back championships. It's why I talked about the Patriots on the midweek blitz from 2005, because that's who you have to judge the Chiefs against. And they went 10-6. Started out 4-4. The Chiefs are 13-1. They are going to be the 1 seed in the AFC as long as they don't blow it down the stretch, and they have a chance to three-peat as champions. This is incredibly impressive because everyone's looking at the Chiefs as their Super Bowl. Myles Garrett said it before the game. He said, hey, I told all these guys, you have a chance to make a name for yourself playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, everybody does, and that's why they get up to play Kansas City, because they know everybody's going to be watching them. Who else watches a Cleveland Browns game? Anyone? Oh no, just Chiefs haters and the die-hard Cleveland Browns fans that refuse to give up. Respect the hell out of you guys, by the way. So, because I was one of those fans. I was one of those fans sitting in Arrowhead Stadium in 2012 wondering how it could possibly get any worse than this. So I am right there with you, Cleveland fans. I think your ship's going to be coming in pretty soon. I do. I really do. I think Cleveland has a lot of good things to like. But right now they're a bad football team. So nobody's watching the Cleveland Browns unless they're playing against the Kansas City Chiefs and you really want to watch the Kansas City Chiefs lose, which I think is a lot of what people dealt with today. They wanted to watch the Chiefs lose this game. So that's why when you're a Browns player, like Myles Garrett said, your entire thing, your entire situation is play well against the Chiefs and then people will notice you. You can make a name for yourself if you play well against the Chiefs. That's what Myles Garrett said, and he's right. And it's why we have to be smarter about how we evaluate the Chiefs. That said, today was ugly. There's no other way to put that. It was just ugly. And I think it's because they overlooked the game. If you overlook a game and you still win by multiple scores on the road, isn't that a good thing? Isn't that a good thing? I don't know. Now, moving on, we have a few things to get to, and I like what we're getting to here. And then I'll end the show with a little more big picture stuff, but every time Juju Smith gets an opportunity, Juju Smith plays out of his mind.
In Kansas City history, Mahomes, flip it, catch, Juju Smith-Schuster dives for the score. Touchdown, Chiefs.
Why aren't we seeing more Juju Smith-Schuster? Every time I see him get an opportunity, he capitalizes on it. So why aren't we getting him the ball more? I want to see Juju get the ball more because I know who Juju Smith-Schuster can be. Juju Smith-Schuster has all the ability in the world to play like he did against the Eagles in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. And I think he's getting healthy because we're seeing a better Juju Smith-Schuster than we've seen in the past. He's a much stronger player than he was, and he's getting those opportunities and capitalizing on those opportunities. I want to see him get more. I want to see more Juju Smith-Schuster out there because what he can accomplish and what he gets lost, man. He gets lost out there. Like when you focus on DeAndre Hopkins, you focus on Travis Kelce, now they're starting to focus on Noah Gray. Okay, throw the ball to Juju Smith-Schuster. And they gave the ball to Xavier Worthy a little bit more today. That was good. We'll develop more on that here in a minute. But I want to focus on Juju. When the Chiefs get the ball to Juju Smith-Schuster, good things happen. So you have to get the ball to him more often. You have to give Juju more opportunities because he's showing that he can be that player that we saw in the Super Bowl against the Eagles 2 years ago. And I want to see him become more of that. He has the ability to be more of that. So if an offense that is obviously struggling, you got to look for answers. And I think a big answer could be at number 9, Juju Smith-Schuster. You just have to give him the opportunities to be that guy because every time he gets those opportunities over the last 5 games, he's capitalized. Feed Juju. Get Juju those chances, man. He has it. He's he's got so much upside. And I know people thought he was washed coming into this season, but when he gets the chances in Kansas City, he's done very well. So you got to keep giving him more chances. Love what we saw from Juju Smith-Schuster today. And we've been calling for Juju to get more chances almost weekly for the last month on this show because we believe in Juju Smith-Schuster. We believe in what he brings to the table, and he shows us all the time that when he does get the opportunities, he is going to capitalize on them. So we want more Juju for the Kansas City Chiefs, more targets for Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, I got to come up with some theories here because I got to know why are there players getting injured all over the league? Like, we saw it again today. Players dropping like flies for the Kansas City Chiefs, including Patrick Mahomes. Why are players consistently getting injured in this league left and right while the league continues to preach player safety and pretend to care about player safety? Because if you really cared about player safety, you would not structure the season like this. You wouldn't give the Chiefs 3 games in 10 days. You wouldn't do it. And then I look around the rest of the league and all we see are these injury reports that are filled. Star players going down every single week. What is it about this team now, or this league now rather, where players get injured consistently? What is it? What's going on? Because I don't understand. Speak to me, NFL. What's going on? Why do we see players dropping left and right despite you saying that you care about player safety? Why are we seeing the Chiefs play 3 games in 10 days despite you saying you care about player safety? What we're getting from the NFL is a lot of lip service about player safety without a lot of action that proves that they care about player safety. So what that tells me is the NFL is full of shit. I don't curse a lot on this podcast, but when it's just perfect and right there, I got to do it. The NFL, full of shit. They say they care about player safety, but all I'm seeing is a bunch of players falling down while the NFL scheduling proves they don't care. Tell me what it is. What are the theories? I mean, here's a theory. People are just softer now than they used to be. There's a theory. I hear it a lot from people on X. I think... Maybe that's a thing. Maybe people see player safety as being, people are just soft now. I don't really buy that. Well, where's another theory I heard? I heard that, they're not playing enough preseason games, so their bodies aren't used to getting hit. They don't hit during practice. They don't hit during the training camp. And when your body's not used to getting hit, it's going to have a more extreme reaction when it gets hit at full speed. I think that's a very fair theory. We see all these guys taking all these plays off, not getting hit during training camp, not getting hit during preseason, not playing much until the season actually begins, and then everybody gets hurt. I think there's something to be said about the theory of your body not being used to taking hits. And if your body's not used to taking hits and then you take one at full speed in a regular season game, yeah, it's going to hurt a lot more and you have a much better chance of getting injured. I mean, if you hit somebody who's not used to taking hits, yeah, it's going to hurt them a lot more. So it used to be that you had a training camp, you took some hits there. You had preseason, you took a few more hits there. And then by the time the regular season came, your body was pretty ready to take some full speed hits. But now we have no hitting in training camp, limited hitting in preseason. And by the time the season starts, guys are getting hit and they're not at all used to it. So that I think is a very strong, very logical theory as to why we see NFL players drop like flies now, despite the fact that the NFL says to us that they care about player safety. I subscribe to this theory. I think it's a fair one. How do you fix it without the players whining and complaining because they don't want to get hit during training camp and preseason? Frankly, I don't know. I think the players' union is probably going to win that argument. But if they look at the numbers, as far as who's getting injured, who's out for the year, how many season-ending injuries do you see in a season? You have to have a really deep roster now to go into the playoffs or win a Super Bowl because players get dropped left and right every single week. It's got to get better from an NFL standpoint, and then I think it'll get better from a Chiefs standpoint. But make no mistake, it's frustrating to see the way that this season is played out when it comes to injuries. And I think a lot of it has to do with the NFL and its structure. Now, Hollywood Brown, speaking of injuries, let's get to Hollywood. Take it back to Hollywood. Hollywood Brown. He could return by Saturday against the Texans. I heard that today. Hollywood Brown could return Saturday against the Texans. I'm in no rush to get Hollywood Brown back. I want him back healthy. I don't love the idea of rushing somebody back when it's not in dire need. I don't know that Hollywood Brown is a dire need. However, Hollywood Brown will change the entire offense. The ability to streak deep. Everybody's covering Xavier Worthy when he goes deep because he's the only one in Kansas City that can really beat you deep. If you bring in Hollywood Brown, now you have two guys that can really beat you deep, and it'll change the entire dynamic of the offense. So that will matter for the Kansas City Chiefs. It will matter to get Hollywood Brown back and healthy. It'll elevate this offense and hopefully make them better because we know they can be. We know this offense can be a lot better than it is, and that's what we're waiting on. We're waiting on an offense that comes out and performs the way that we know they're supposed to perform. They've looked so sloppy. They've looked so off the same page. They don't even look like they're reading the same book. And that's what's frustrating for Chiefs fans. Even at 13-1, even going on the road and beating a Cleveland Browns team by multiple scores, the Chiefs fans still walk away from that game going, man, I just don't know. And you know what? I think it's fair. Bring back Eric Bieniemy. Bring back the crispness to this offense and stop getting Mahomes destroyed in the pocket like he's a $2 quarterback. He's a $500,000 quarterback and you can't protect him? That's the problem with this Chiefs offense and why people are concerned. Now, is it a little bit of an overreaction with a game plan that was clearly vanilla? Yes, but it's not a lot of an overreaction because we expect to see at least some level of crispness in this offense. And the offensive game plan today, the play calling today for the Kansas City Chiefs, couldn't be more uninspired if you tried. That's the issue the Chiefs are having right now. Uninspired play calling, uninspired play by the team. And it has to get fixed. But at the same time, the Chiefs are 13-1. They do win the game against the Cleveland Browns 21-7. This has been Chiefs Chase. My name is Mike Bassano. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure you like and subscribe because we will have a midweek blitz this week, getting you ready for the Houston Texans game. I appreciate you guys more than I could ever possibly tell you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great week.